You know, as always, great point, Greg and Quincy. Let me just add to something that I've noticed from reading many of the news organizations in town, is there's been a great deal of focus on bringing new investment in the last year to the community in different ways. That seems to be, from reading and talking to folks, a big deal in terms of how do we bring businesses to Mesquite. And I know that we have brought the MRBI on. I think, you know, I had a chance to meet with Gay and George last year, had a wonderful meeting with them. I think the concept is really good. I think that they, in the last city council meeting, made an effort to, I think, hopefully, I think, from what I can tell from talking to some of my executive team, and is that they really want to be as transparent, or they're starting to try to make those processes in place, which I think is a real good thing. Having said that, you know, the question for me, in terms of looking at my brothers and my investment, is, you know, when I've looked at being here in Mesquite for a long time now, while I think going and getting businesses, and again, MRB, by the way, I checked their website out last week, and I thought they packaged it and done a nice job of presenting the community, and I think that's important. But one of the things, to me, in thinking about how do we grow Mesquite, how do we get this economy, you know, truly moving? How do we attract that new capital that comes in? You know, in my opinion, over a course of almost over a decade that my brother and I have owned the golf course now, I've seen a lot of businesses actually come to Mesquite. So attracting businesses, in my opinion, and this isn't to say that what MRBI isn't trying to do is a good thing, but I think we almost have to look at our bigger challenge, and that's keeping them here. And so the mindset of keeping them here, if I'm on city council, or I'm on the water district board, or I'm thinking about running for the city council in the future, or the water district board, I'm just putting myself, and by the way, the folks who run for it, I give my hat, because it sometimes can be a thankless job, and I think that anytime you are willing to serve and help the community, and if your intention's that way, that should be commended first and foremost. So I want to tip my hat to the folks that are willing to, even the ones who run in primaries and spend the time to go do that. I think that's really important for our community, just on a side note. But the concept of how we go attract capital, I think you've got to look at your situation and say, okay, Mesquite, we've got to look ourselves in the eye and say, let's take a look at the last 10 years. Let's be honest about it. Let's take a look at some of the folks that have been in town, that have left, and I think, and look at, not saying that this is a bad community. I think people look at all the beauty and they see all the opportunity. Okay, believe me, you know, we're in, my brother and I have spent billions, we believe, we're here, we're trying to make every effort. These guys next to me are in this, they've spent probably a lot more, bigger companies, but we believe. Attracting new capital, you need to have a track record. And today, after when the recession hit and the bottom fell out, what happened to lenders all over the country, especially in a state like Nevada. And I get this a lot. I mean, this is, my brother and I own in Northern Nevada, we got a huge business interest. We basically are the landlords to Financial Row. We have companies like Wells Fargo, Morgan Stanley, RBC, you know, big lenders and their presidents, and we, you know, oftentimes, just to give you an idea, and every time we talk to one of our lending partners or stuff, and Mesquite comes up, they think, hey, small town, fragile economy, Nevada. How many people made money in Mesquite? That's been thrown at me in private meetings. Hey, did you know this business? You know, why did the Halpin family leave several years ago? That, to me, when I watched, was a teachable moment. Not that we can say, hey, that deal with NCS was a good deal or a bad deal. But maybe we should ask ourselves, if you wrote a check to be out, what did we do to help that business succeed? What kind of relationship building did we do as city staff members, board members? You know, this isn't critical. I think Blake's doing a fantastic job. I'm looking back there at the chamber. He's out meeting with a lot of people. But when I say chamber, you know, everybody in the room, right? Let's get together and say, hey, what can we do better to help the businesses succeed? So if you think about it, and I'll just use Wolf Creek speaking for, I always do this to Quincy, gets nervous when I start speaking next to him. I say, Wolf Creek, on behalf of Wolf Creek, and Greg. You know, one of the issues, I know, hey, people around me, they know, they start going, oh, here he goes. You know, one of the things that Wolf Creek has been really concerned about is what Greg mentioned earlier was the water situation. And a couple years ago, we saw what happened in Lake Las Vegas. You know, okay, we saw what happened at some other golf properties. And obviously Mesquite's got, if you look at the town size, it's got 15,000 people, and you got 7 golf courses. Now I think that's a real advantage. I think you've heard from these guys that that is a competitive advantage for this community. That's not what it is for a lot of other places, but to our community, that's a competitive advantage. So if you're sitting on city council or the water board, and you have an idea about raising your rates to Las Vegas water rates, and you want to be paying instead of $250, and I know some people have made the argument that Wolf Creek is, I used to hear through the grapevine, my executive assistant would come and go, "Do you hear that they said that you guys got a sweetheart deal, blah, blah, blah." I used to go, oh, I got to go through this again and tell you why that's different. Let me give you my own, I would sit there and tell my Nancy, say that's not really the case, and let me explain why. But if you think about what, if you're thinking about why, if you were to raise those rates to Las Vegas prices, meaning that Wolf Creek at 195 in peak, okay, isn't 500, and even the companies like Harrah's and MGM and all the other golf courses are struggling with existing water prices that the SNWA has put on them in essence. And they can't do it down there. Imagine what that would do to here. And then you go, okay, so the golf courses are, they're done, they can't make it here. If Wolf Creek goes down and it's empty out there, you see the results today, what we're trying to fix with our greens. Okay, just imagine that entirely brown. Think about if you're owning a home up there, what you could look at every day if it wasn't operating. Think about the 90 employees, most of them live in Mesquite, not all of them, but most of them in the surrounding communities. Think about the 20 million in payroll over 10 years that we've made. Think about the $3.5 million of hard advertising just out of our one golf course alone, not counting all the great, Tiger Woods, they actually gave us a bunch of free stuff and we didn't pay them, but that was a great deal for us, soft advertising dollars. You can't quantify a number on that. But think about the charities. Think about the lifestyle when you invite, your kids, if you're retired here, or your grandkids, if you want to go somewhere. Think about the golf courses are able to subsidize and add some lifestyle quality to the experience in Mesquite. So when decisions are made at the water board and the city council, if I see it as an owner, and Chad and I sit there and talk and we go, man, we're fighting through the recession, we're keeping people employed, we're contributing to the community, we think we're representing in the best way we can. Hey, the greens, that's on me, but I'm doing everything I can with our great staff. Joel is busting his butt, Kathy, Nancy, Ruben, they're all trying, Steve Sargent, whole entire crew. But think about if that wasn't here, and think about the impact that that would have. And, when city leaders go and do make those decisions, if you were to increase, of course, like Falcon Ridge's, affluent water rates by 2 cents, you might think 2 cents, that's nothing. To them, that's going to be 20 to 30 grand, and that's an operating expense. How about their bank when they have to go report that, what's called debt service cover ratio? Think about, so when you start looking at operating expenses, then the owner's going to go, gosh, what am I putting my money in for? I'm never going to see a profit. Now I'm going to start cutting corners. So if the golf course shuts down, think about if you're working for somebody, whether you're in the police department or the fire department or a city staff member, think about where you're taxable based. And those homes, which we've seen in Lake Las Vegas, their values have gone down. How are you going to raise those things? My brother and I spent a lot of time pitching this community on a long term so we could focus on what we do best. Okay? And that's marketing the heck out of Wolf Creek and Mesquite. It says Mesquite, Nevada every single time. The great thing, the positive side of all of this is, Greg, Quincy, and myself have become, I think, good working partners, and I know we've worked with other golf courses in town and want to see this community do great things.